When I told her, "Walk out that door and you won't walk back in," I meant every word, sharp as a blade. But Ashley, my wife of 7 years, just smirked, flicked her hair back like she was posing for some high school prom pic, and strutted out in heels I paid for. A Louis Vuitton bag swung off her shoulder, already packed for a weekend with her ex. Her ex. Let that word settle in your gut for a second. I didn't scream, didn't throw anything, didn't beg her to stay. I stood there barefoot on the cold marble, gripping the kitchen island like it was the only thing keeping me upright. My jaw was so tight, I could feel the crack of my teeth grinding together. "You'll regret this," I told her. She didn't even look back, just laughed, like I was the punchline to a joke. That was the last time I saw her face in my house. But let's back up, just 24 hours. Thanksgiving was barely over. We hadn't spoken much at dinner. She said she felt sick, maybe the flu. She spent the night on the couch watching some documentary, her phone never leaving her hand. Every time it buzzed, her eyes lit up, a smile I hadn't seen in months curling her lips. She smelled different too. New perfume. Heavy. Floral. Cloying. Her clothes had shifted, skirts tighter, tops cut lower. When I mentioned it, she snapped back. "So now I can't look good for myself?" That was Ashley these days. Always defensive. Always that tone, like I'd offended her by even existing. We used to be a team. I built my marketing firm from scratch, and she was there at the start, helping with the admin, working late, making sandwiches while I worked. But when the money came in, the vacation started, and she saw what a platinum card could buy. Something in her changed. The sparkle in her eyes? It wasn't for me anymore. It was for what I gave her. And that sparkle flared back to life the day Derek came around. High school flame turned he's just a friend. Muscles, tattoos, that fake charm you can smell through the phone when she giggles at his texts. Recently divorced. Suddenly he's helping her with some podcast idea she never had before. Coffee dates. She even brought him to our charity gala. Networking, she claimed. I heard her voice soften every time she said his name. Watched her step outside to take calls she couldn't answer in front of me. I knew. Deep down, I always did. But love, it's a stupid, blinding thing. So I didn't call her out. Not right away. I wanted her to think I was still fogged over. I wanted to see just how far she'd go. People always say get mad, yell, break something. But silence. That rattles them more. The moment came sooner than I expected. Friday morning, she walked in wearing a tight beige dress that barely covered anything, sunglasses already perched on her head, phone in hand. I asked where she was going. "Weekend yoga retreat," she said. "Don't wait up." I didn't even blink. I leaned against the fridge, arms folded, and told her, "If you walk out that door, Ashley, you're not walking back in." She paused for a heartbeat. That 3-second window. She could have chosen us. Chosen honesty. But she didn't. She just gave me that smirk, the same one she used to flash at strangers in bars. That I get what I want smirk. Then she turned, strutted to the door, and slammed it shut. And just like that, my house felt cleaner. Colder, but clearer. I poured myself a scotch at 10 a.m. and watched the cameras I'd installed 2 weeks ago. One outside, one in the garage, one in the guest bedroom she'd started sleeping in, without her knowing. The camera didn't lie. She wasn't going to yoga. She was picked up in a brand new matte black Range Rover, driven by Derek. And when she leaned in to kiss him across the console like I didn't exist, I smiled for the first time in weeks. She was gone, but I was just getting started. While Ashley vanished into her fantasy, I started building mine. I wouldn't chase, wouldn't beg. I'd destroy, quietly, methodically, legally. Because when a woman spits on loyalty and a man stays calm, that man is dangerous. I opened the drawer in my office, where I'd been gathering files for weeks. Bank statements, messages from her cloud backup, hotel receipts, even a screenshot of her booking 2 first-class tickets to Miami under a fake name, mine and hers. But the companion? It wasn't me. Derek had turned into Liam Haynes for that little trip. Amateur. The camera in the guest bedroom had caught their last meeting. Her in a robe, hair a mess, laughing like she didn't have a husband. She told him, he's still clueless. She thought I was sleeping, like some old fool, when I made her breakfast that morning. Derek just laughed, loud and wild. Then he touched her, like I hadn't seen since our honeymoon. I didn't save the footage. I didn't need to. I saved the audio. Sent it straight to my lawyer. Most men would break at this point. But not me. I got sharper. Called my accountant and froze every shared card, every joint account. Changed the locks. Had her Mercedes, still under my name, towed straight back to the dealership. Cut her access to my business, revoked every privilege. Then I made a dinner reservation, table for one. Downtown, Italian place. Candlelight, violins, an empty seat across from me. I needed that. Closure. Until halfway through my meal, my phone buzzed. Ashley. Flight delayed. We'll be back tomorrow. Miss me yet? I stared at that message, like it was some twisted joke. No shame. No guilt. We. Her and Derek. Her new world. So I answered her. I hope he's worth everything. She didn't reply. Sunday evening rolled in with the rain, sheets of it hammering the roof like a warning. I sat by the fireplace, divorce papers spread out on the coffee table. The doorbell rang. She was drenched, mascara streaking down her face, hair a tangled mess. No fancy Range Rover, just a cab pulling away into the night. She took a shaky breath. Erin, she started. I didn't move. Didn't even get up. I didn't think you were serious, she said. About not letting me back in. I looked her dead in the eye. I was. She scoffed, disbelief painted across her face. Don't be dramatic. I needed space. You've been so distant. I laughed. Not loud, just enough. Don't twist this. You disrespected our vows. She took a step closer. Please, Erin. We made mistakes. But I still. No. I said, cutting her off, pointing at the suitcase she dropped at her feet. You made mistakes. I made plans. Her eyes darted to the coffee table. She saw the papers. Her lips parted in a silent gasp. I'll fight this, she whispered. You already lost, I said, stepping forward and opening the door. Good luck with Derek. He'll get bored when your looks stop covering up your lies. Cold wind rushed in. She stepped back, her lips trembling. But she didn't move forward. She knew. This wasn't a game anymore. She turned and walked down the driveway into the dark. That was the last time she set foot on my property. She thought leaving was power. But I was the one who stayed and burned it all down, quietly, without lifting a finger. The next morning, the silence in the house was louder than any fight we'd ever had. No perfume thickening the air. No passive-aggressive clatter of coffee mugs. No lies dressed up as girls' brunch. Just peace, and the low hum of justice warming up. At exactly 9:01 a.m., my attorney, Jenna Walsh, called. Sharp voice, sharper mind. She got served this morning? I asked. She sure did, Jenna said. At her gym, in front of her entire yoga class. I let out a breath. Good. She tried to claim emotional harassment, Jenna continued. But when she realized you've got hotel footage, voice recordings, and financial proof of fraud, she shut up. I finished, smirking. Like a slammed door. For the first time in weeks, I felt like me again. Not the husband walking on eggshells. Not the fool trying to fix a woman who didn't want to be fixed. Just me. Erin Clark. Owner of Clark & Rich. Respected. Feared. Unapologetic. Only one downside. My mother called around noon. Erin's sweetheart. She's still your wife. No, Mom. I cut her off. She was my wife. Now she's just another woman who made a bet and lost. That night, I checked her social media. Nothing. No curated photos. No beach shots. No forced bliss. Just silence. No love quotes. No overpriced wine selfies. I checked Derek's page too. His latest story? Deleted. But I found it cached. Poolside shot. Her legs draped over his lap. Caption: Paradise gets better with company. Funny how paradise turns to a nightmare when the card stops swiping. Tuesday morning, my front desk girl buzzed in. Erin, your wife is here. Ex-wife. Send her in, I said calmly. Ashley walked in. Helen Chanel. Hair brushed in a rush. Makeup smudged like she tried to put it back together in the back seat of someone else's regret. You froze everything, she spat, slamming her palm on my desk. Yes, I said. I can't even buy a coffee. Sounds like a Derek problem, I replied. She let out a bitter laugh. He's gone. Oh. I tilted my head, feigning interest. Already. She didn't answer. Just stood there, her nostrils flaring. Do you know what you're doing? She asked. I do, I said. Do you? She stepped back, softer now. We can fix this. You lied, I said, rising to my feet. You cheated. You disrespected me in front of everyone. My friends, my staff, your own family. And now what? You're only back because the other guy ran out of gas. She tried to cry, but those weren't tears of regret. Those were the kind that show up when the consequences finally do. You said I wouldn't walk back in, she whispered. But here I am. And this, I said, pointing to the office floor, isn't my home. She looked around, eyes wide and deflated. So that's it. I walked around the desk, opened the door. That's it. As she walked past, I caught the perfume again. But now, it smelled like desperation. That night, I poured myself a whiskey and scrolled through emails. One caught my eye, an invitation to a business gala. The kind she used to live for. Glamour, spotlight, the whole performance. I RSVP'd for one. She chose a man who offered an escape. I chose freedom. She traded my love for a weekend illusion. I bet on myself, and I was collecting the winnings. The gala was at the Grand Laurenton, old money luxury, crystal chandeliers, marble floors that shone like mirrors, reflecting every regret. I arrived in a tailored charcoal suit. No tie, no weight on my shoulders. The valet took my car, the doorman greeted me by name, and for the first time in years, I walked in without carrying someone else's shadow. The whispers started immediately. Erin's here alone? Where's his wife? I heard she ran off with some guy. I didn't flinch. I let them talk. While they whispered, I smiled, shook hands, and owned the room. Power doesn't need to scream. It speaks in quiet control, and tonight, I was the loudest man in that ballroom. Then I saw her. Ashley. Across the floor. Hair perfect, makeup like armor. Wearing the black dress I bought her in Santorini for our anniversary. No one on her arm. Derek must have ditched her before dessert. She froze when she saw me. I didn't stop. Didn't slow down. Just let my gaze slide past her like she was an outdated fixture. She couldn't let it go. She followed. Erin, she said, her voice trailing behind me. Wait. I turned, calm and cold. Ashley, I didn't know you'd be here. It's a public event, I said. Not a therapy session. Her lips pressed together. I'm trying to talk. Then talk. She hesitated, scanning the room. Do you even want to hear me out? I stepped closer, not close enough to touch, but close enough for her to feel the finality in my tone. I warned you, Ashley. I gave you a clear choice. You thought I was bluffing. You walked out because you believed I'd chase you. She blinked. You didn't. No, I said. I didn't. I turned again, and she followed like a shadow. Erin, please, Derek's not who I thought he was. I stopped and turned, my voice steel. And who am I, Ashley? The man who paid for your degree? Who built you a life? Who stayed faithful while you ran back to some high school fantasy? Her eyes welled up. I made a mistake. No, I said softly. You made a decision. She didn't have a comeback. For once, she was silent. I don't need your apology, I said, and walked away. I don't need closure. I don't even crave revenge. Because the best part of this story, she did it to herself. She lit the match and thought it would only burn me. I didn't expect you to move on so fast, she muttered. I didn't move on fast, I said. I moved on right. As I walked away for the second time, she stood there, alone, surrounded by gowns and tuxedos, yet more invisible than ever. Later that night, I sat in the back of my car, jacket loosened, a soft jazz playlist playing low. My assistant had sent me a file, something I didn't ask for, but couldn't stop watching. Ashley, making a last-ditch attempt at social media sympathy. A cryptic caption about lessons and growing through pain. The comments? Brutal. Even her old friends weren't buying it. The illusion was gone. The mask cracked. And that night, I slept better than I had in months. No guilt. No questions. Just clarity. She gave up a kingdom for a weekend in a rented paradise, and now she had to live with the ruins. The following week, the world went quiet. No angry texts. Number 2 a.m. voicemails. No desperate emails titled, "We need to talk," or, "You're being heartless." Just silence. I thought maybe she'd finally realized. When you walk out that door, it doesn't swing back open when your fantasy crumbles. But people like her? They never learn. They panic. They plot. Sure enough, by Thursday, the games returned. Jenna, my lawyer, called me up. Ashley's trying to contest the prenup, she said coolly. She's claiming emotional manipulation and financial entrapment. I laughed, actually laughed, right there in my office. Entrapment, I said. She's the one who ran off with another man like it was some girl's weekend. Her argument's weak, Jenna said. But it's not about winning, it's about stalling. She's bleeding. She wants time. Time. That's what I gave her before, too much of it. I used to think time could heal betrayal. That if I waited long enough, loved hard enough, she'd come back to me in the ways that mattered. But now I knew the truth. Time doesn't fix betrayal. It just magnifies the cost. Still, I needed a distraction. So I called someone unexpected. Camille. We'd met at a gala months ago. Ashley had rolled her eyes at her, called her too try-hard. Camille had just laughed. Some people hate mirrors, she said. She picked up on the first ring. Erin Clark, she said, her smile warm even through the phone. Thought you disappeared. Only from bad company. I replied. Feel like dinner? Thought you'd never ask. We met that evening at a rooftop restaurant overlooking the city. Warm lights, soft breeze, and a woman across from me who didn't need to pretend. Camille didn't play games. She didn't scroll through her phone mid-sentence or talk about self-love while expecting someone else to bankroll it. And she didn't mention Ashley, not once. That dinner was the first time I felt seen in a long while. Not as a wallet, not as a safety net, just as me. When she left in her own car, she texted me. Next time, you're picking dessert. You're already good at picking wine. Simple, direct, no manipulation, no hidden agenda. That night, I slept with a calm heart. And that's exactly why the storm returned the next morning. Ashley showed up at my office. No appointment, no warning, just waltzed in like she still had a key to this life. You're seeing someone else, she hissed, ignoring the eyes in the hallway. I rose from my desk, stepped around it. That's none of your business. Are you serious, Erin? After everything we've been through. I held her gaze. Everything we've been through? Ashley, you walked out. You made your choice. You torched this marriage. And now? I'm just planting something new in the ashes. Tears welled up in her eyes, but I didn't feel a thing. They weren't sadness, just rage. The rage of someone who thought she could have it all, and now had nothing. You think this is over? She spat. No, I said calmly. I know it is. She stared at me, waiting for me to falter, to crack. But I didn't. I turned and walked back into my office. A second later, I heard the door slam behind her. I didn't flinch. Because peace doesn't come from getting even. It comes from moving on without looking back. It comes when you no longer care if it does. The slam of the door didn't echo long. It was swallowed up by the calm I'd built around me. Ashley's meltdown was just static noise now. She could rage, cry, manipulate, and scream in all caps, but none of it touched me anymore. I was past heartbreak, past betrayal. What I felt now was deeper, sharper. A clean detachment that doesn't come from revenge, but from evolution. When a man survives betrayal, he doesn't come back the same. He either breaks, or he becomes bulletproof. I became the latter. That weekend, I flew out to Denver for a business conference. I could have sent someone else, but I needed the air, needed to see new faces, new places. Camille texted me as I was boarding. Don't forget to charm the boardroom, she wrote. And maybe smile a little. I sent her a photo from my seat, smirk in place, champagne in hand. Already ahead of you. The trip was smooth, productive, profitable. I closed a deal we'd been chasing for 8 months. But more than that, I felt grounded. Like the version of me before Ashley had come back, but sharper, less naive, more precise. It wasn't until I landed that I saw the bombshell waiting in my inbox. Subject line: emergency, urgent legal notice. Ashley was suing me. Not just contesting the prenup, but accusing me of infidelity. I blinked, then laughed, rubbed my temples. The irony was almost poetic. The woman who ran off with her ex was now trying to brand me the cheater. I called Jenna. She was already ahead of the game. We'll bury this, she said. I've subpoenaed the hotel footage. And the text you saved? She's panicking. This is desperation. And she was right. That same day, Ashley tried to contact Camille, sent her a message on Instagram. All fake niceties and woman-to-woman nonsense. Camille sent me the screenshot with one word. Classy. Ashley was coming apart fast. And messy. The next morning, I made a choice. No more defense. No more reaction. It was time to steer the narrative. I called a journalist I knew, not for scandal, not for revenge, but for clarity. A profile piece on Clark and Ridge had been in the works for months. Now, I made sure the story was mine. Clean. Strong. Clear. Ashley. She wasn't mentioned at all. Because irrelevance is the cruelest punishment of all. Days turned to a week. And something strange happened. I didn't think about her anymore. Not when I brewed coffee in the morning. Not when I came home at night. Not when I passed that store where we'd always argued about candles. She became background noise. Until one afternoon, while reviewing quarterly numbers, my assistant walked in holding a large envelope. "This came for you," hand-delivered. Inside, a letter. No name, no greeting, just one line. "I didn't believe you'd let me go." No signature, no apology, just that. I folded it and dropped it in the shredder. Because belief had nothing to do with it. She didn't believe I'd close the door. She didn't believe I'd heal. She didn't believe I'd rise. But I did. And when you stop needing someone to believe in you, that's when they finally do. The shredder hummed softly, then fell silent, just like her. No more letters. No more threats. No more desperate posts masquerading as apologies. The storm had passed, and what was left wasn't rubble. It was clarity. In the weeks that followed, I reclaimed everything that had felt tainted. My mornings, my mindset, my identity. Ashley had taken up so much space in my life that even her absence had carried weight. But now, it was as if she'd never existed at all. Camille and I grew closer. It wasn't love, at least not yet. But it was honest. And that was something I hadn't felt in years. We met for dinners that didn't feel like tests. Laughed without caution. Talked without reading between the lines. One night over sushi, she asked, "Do you ever miss her?" I took a slow sip of sake before I answered. "No, I miss who I thought she was. But the real woman? I don't even recognize her anymore." Camille nodded. "Then you're already ahead of most people." I appreciated that she never pushed me. She never tried to make me erase my past, only understand it. But peace never stays untouched, does it? One Monday morning, Jenna called. "You're not going to like this." "What now?" I asked, already feeling that old pressure building behind my eyes. "She filed for emergency financial relief," Jenna said, "claiming you're withholding funds, and she's facing emotional and financial ruin." "Let me guess, Derek bailed again?" "She didn't mention him. But there's something else." I leaned forward. "What?" "She's pregnant." My world stopped, just for a moment. "Pregnant?" I said. "With his child? Is it mine?" I already knew the answer, but I had to ask. "She's claiming it could be," Jenna said. "But the timeline doesn't work, unless she's part Camille and carried it for 12 months. I didn't know whether to laugh or put my fist through the wall. "She's using it to stall," Jenna said calmly. "But it won't stick. I've got everything lined up, medical records, security footage, messages with Derek." The word pregnant echoed in my head, but not with grief, not with jealousy, with relief, because it meant she was tied down now, to a new life, a new man, a new mess, and I was free. By Friday, everything started shifting in my favor. The judge tossed out her claims. The prenup was upheld. I kept the house, the car, the business, the investments. Ashley, she got her last name back, but that wasn't enough for her. Later that month, I got a call from a blocked number. Normally, I wouldn't answer, but something told me to pick up. "Hello," I said. There was a pause. Then her voice, fragile, soft. "Erin, I wanted to say I'm sorry." I didn't say anything. She took a breath. "You were right. About everything. I should have listened. I should have." I hung up. Not out of anger. Not out of pride. Out of peace. Because I didn't need her apology. I didn't need her regret. I already had the one thing she could never fake, myself. And when you finally choose you over the person who tried to shatter you, that's when healing begins. The final chapter didn't come with fireworks. No courtroom showdown. No public shaming. Just a quiet morning by the window, coffee in hand, realizing I didn't feel anything when I thought of her name. Not anger. Not sadness. Not vengeance. Just nothing. And that's what true closure is. Not a dramatic ending, but indifference. A healed silence where the wound used to scream. That week, the divorce was finalized. It arrived in a manila envelope from Jenna's office with a single sticky note. "It's over. Officially. Congratulations." No confetti. No champagne. But I smiled anyway. A deep, private smile. The kind that comes from surviving something built to break you. That evening, I walked to my fire pit. Tossed in the last of it. Our wedding photo, a love letter she once wrote me during simpler days, a tiny keychain she bought in Paris that used to mean everything. The flames didn't roar. They just consumed. And I watched every lie turn to ash. Later that night, Camille came over. She didn't ask questions. She didn't need to. She just curled up beside me on the couch, a book in her lap, her hand resting on my chest like a quiet anchor. That was the first time I truly exhaled. Not because someone else loved me again, but because I'd finally learned to love myself. A month passed. Then two. I started traveling again, not for work. For me. I went to Iceland alone. Stood on black sand beaches. Watched the northern lights dance across the sky. And somewhere in the glow of those swirling lights, it hit me. Ashley didn't ruin me. She revealed me. She showed me where I was bleeding. Where I was bending too much. Giving too much. Forgiving too easily. Hoping too blindly. She cracked the surface and exposed everything I'd been neglecting in the name of us. But there was never an us. There was just me and the illusion. And once the illusion died, I was finally alive. I started mentoring younger entrepreneurs. Spoke at a few conferences. Shared my story, not the scandal, not the gossip, just the rebirth. The rebuilding. How to come back stronger. Sharper. Smarter. After one of those speeches, a young guy came up to me. "Man, I just got out of something brutal," he said. "She cheated. Lied. Took half my stuff. I don't even know who I am anymore." I looked him straight in the eye. "Good," I said. "Because now you get to decide who you want to be. And no one else gets a say." That's what I'd tell anyone now. Don't waste your life trying to fix someone who's already chosen to break you. Don't wait for closure from the same hands that caused your pain. And don't ever mistake silence for weakness. Sometimes, walking away is the loudest thing you'll ever do. Ashley. She disappeared, faded from the headlines, from the whispers, from relevance. I heard she moved 2 states over. Tried to start some coaching business. Still chasing validation like it's oxygen. Still clinging to youth in a world that stopped applauding her games long ago. But me? I'm here. Standing taller. Breathing deeper. Laughing harder. And not once have I looked back. Because when she walked out that door, she thought she was choosing freedom. But I was the one set free.